recording in okay, I'm gonna need a minute to like set up the thing, so talk for like 90 seconds.
Does anybody need a refill?
Oh my god, we're going to refill. We're gonna have a big, long talk.
A lot of coffee.
It's going to be on Sunday, something like
Anytime, yeah. Or you can use. What time is it? I'm going to teach. So, and then I'm done. And then I'm just packing. I teach at 3:30. So, okay. So you can either do it. How long is your Or just
No, I think I did.
I teach at 3:30. I'll be closing. So, all right. I'm going to come to you.
Including me. Just making that a little.
Katie, is this your screen? That's an awful lot to ask. Do you want to do it that way, or do you want to do it in person and we can figure it out, or we can go over that way either? Yeah. There's a lot to talk about because we missed the meeting. Yeah. I just want to.
Yeah.
I would like to know. It was like. Okay. Let's do it. Okay.
It works.
You know, I've had this little kind of nagging cough for like about 3 weeks. I'm so tired of it. But my voice is back. My voice is back. Yeah. So I should come to your house. Will you have time to eat lunch? Well, let's just have a little bit of snacks or something like that. I usually don't eat like a full lunch. I'll just have some apples and stuff. So you can plan accordingly. Whatever you prefer.
So many people are on the Zoom. Are there like 5 people on Zoom right now?
yeah.
That's great.
And another one joining in a sec.
Wow, that's so good.
Yes. And thank you for the check on the muting, Katie. I did that out of habit. I was like, oh, I better be quiet. But of course, that's how you guys hear everything.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Get started?
Yeah, can we Zoom people? If I'm up here talking, can you hear me, Zoom people? Ryan, is any of the Zoom people responding to the question?
I mean, hopefully at least one of them is in the process. But Shanti, pretty good.
Yes, we can hear you.
That'll do. Thank you, Katie.
Let's just make a way then.
I'm not sure how I feel about the camera following Katie. In some ways it's really nice, but in other ways it's kind of nauseating. So I guess I don't have to look at the screen. But
I can turn it off. Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. So now it shouldn't do that anymore.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Y'all ready? Okay, you guys have been ready. Hi, I'm Katie. This feels weird to introduce myself because I feel like I know all of you for a while now. I did this presentation at first for the Young Professionals track of Pedagogy Saturday at MTNA in March, and then I did it at the state conference in June. And now I get to do it for like the home field, which is really nice. Yeah, so this presentation, if I had a time machine working smarter, not harder, is just all the things I wish I would have done better at first, but also a good reminder to my current self and probably anybody about best practices and boundaries and all that. So, I'm going to give you guys some background on me, which is fine. Okay, I moved here in 2011 to go to college at Cornish, and it was great, and I taught a little bit then, and mostly for companies that hired me to teach like 2 students and go to their house and spend 45 minutes driving there, and then teach for half an hour, and then make like $2. But it was great. It was a good experience at least. And then I graduated in 2014, and I continued to teach. I had a couple of my own students. I kind of scraped by, but was having a good time. I took any Craigslist gig I could get my hands on, ranging from the retirement party where the retired person's kids or grandkids were like smashing on the piano as I was trying to play background music, to playing for a conveyor belt convention at the Chihuly Glass Garden, which was really cool. I played for 5 minutes and got paid $400. But the most impactful Craigslist gig I ever got was playing for a dinner theater in Alaska for 5 months. I thought it was a scam actually, because I answered the Craigslist ad because I was answering everything, and this guy was like, "Can I come to your house and audition you?" And I said yes to that, which was something. But it turned out to be real, and then I went to Alaska the next month and played for this cheesy dinner theater, and it was a great experience. And that's you might not see it so well, but that's a picture of that down there. I'm kind of holding the axe. Then I didn't know what I was going to do with my life after that. So then I moved back in with my parents. I was 22 at the time, and I substitute taught for a bit. But then I really quickly discovered that I don't want to teach 30 kids at the same time, and that it is really hard. So I moved back to Seattle and started my studio again, and did a little better this time. Not like a ton better, but a little better. Instead of charging $20 an hour, I think I started at 40. So, which still was not enough. So I moved back here. I started my own studio. I moved back in. I started at a studio apartment with my best friend, and I had students there, and I went to students' houses, and I was able to build my studio to like 65 students in the first year. Which was too many, and it was a lot of work. And I also joined SMTA that year, which was so impactful. And then I, through a lot of like researching, and I had a business coach for a second, and trial and error, I kind of got my stuff together, which is good. And now I feel like I'm doing great. I bought my own home a couple years ago, and I go on a lot of vacations, and I kind of get to do anything I want to do. And I really love my work and teaching, and so that things are really good. But it didn't start out that way. So we're going to talk about some things that help me get there. We're going to talk about finding students, where to teach, payments, policies, communication, teaching, and other stuff. And that's my cat, Mouse, and she's cute. Okay, so finding students. The things that work well for me, referrals. I think almost all of you know that the best way to get a student is if the current student is like, "I like you," to their friend, and then their friends like you too, and it goes great. But that isn't always fast enough when you're first moving to a new place, or sometimes you're stuck. So the next thing on my list that worked well for me was utilizing community. So even friends outside of music, let everybody know that you're taking new students, and don't be afraid to ask directly to your current students for referrals. I think I used to be nervous about that because I think that they would think that I wasn't doing well, and that might be for a reason, but they really want to help you, your community does. So asking directly is good. Having a website and Google listing, oftentimes the first place people go for lessons is to Google piano lessons. So one should have a website. And the Google listing is on Google Business. So if you set up a Google Business page for yourself, it helps your ranking on Google, and especially if you get reviews from your current students. Your local music teacher association, you all know that we have a find a teacher page, and I've gotten a lot of inquiries about lessons from that. And then next we're in Facebook parenting groups. Those are like the self-promotion-y things that actually worked for me. I mean, I kind of hated doing them because it's sort of, I don't know, it felt weird to me to post in a parenting Facebook group about taking piano students, but it works, and I'd do it again if I was moving to a new city. So Facebook groups are like, if you go on Facebook and you type in Seattle parents, and then you type in Seattle moms, and then you type in Seattle dads, and then you type in every iteration of that, including your neighborhood, and there's like so many groups, and then you can look at their rules, and as long as they don't have anything against it, you can post a little ad for yourself. It's even better if you have a friend who is a parent and can post that you're great and that you're taking these students. The things that didn't work well for me and that I would not recommend are flyers. Flyers, I did get a few students from my flyers, but they weren't like the best of students. And they were often the ones that would like ask for discounts and things like that. And which was partially probably my own like self-promotion issue. And also like the amount of work putting up flyers is, and like it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like, it felt embarrassing to like be like putting flyers on poles and stuff. So, and it just wasn't worth it for me. But what really wasn't worth it was Yelp. Man, I got a settlement check from Yelp like 3 months ago for $22. They had like a class action lawsuit because they were just harassing people to buy ads. And they were really harassing and would not like let you say no. The only way I could really get rid of them was by saying, I don't want new students and I want less students. But even then they would still call. So I do think it helped my Google ranking, so if you're really desperate, maybe. But I wouldn't. Again. So maybe, yeah, I wouldn't. And then promos. So any sort of thing where you email students and say, if you refer a new student, I'll take $50 off of your next month lesson. Or like, join in the new year and get 50% off your first month. Or anything like that. I think one doesn't really work because people who want lessons generally aren't doing it because they want a discount on something. And also, it can kind of cheapen what you do generally. So I wouldn't recommend that. And then the things I'm kind of ho-hum about are business coaching. I had a business coach for like 4 or 5 months. It did help me, but only because he said, yes, I could do the things that I wanted to do. So if I hadn't been so insecure and just like talked to my friends, then I wouldn't have needed a business coach. I also think, especially in social media spaces, there's a lot of like snake oil going around, like big promises for somebody who's underqualified. So not to say that there's nobody good out there, but I reach out to community first. And then a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page. I think it has helped when I used to post on Facebook parenting groups about lessons to link that page. It helped. But now I mostly just get spam messages from it, and now mostly I also get like feeling guilty for never updating it in my inner brain. So yeah. So I don't know. It's fine, but I don't think you need it. And then Instagram or TikTok, you might actually explore this. Because I think that's where parents of young children are mostly right now versus Facebook. But I just never did. And then paid ads, maybe. I just have never tried it. Yeah. Okay. And going on to your website. It should be student-centered, meaning it should be about them and not about the teacher. So a lot of websites I go to have really long paragraphs about the teacher and about all of their certifications and about their performance and videos of their performance, and very little about very few pictures of their students or information about their teaching. So I think it's good to have a performance website if you're a performer, or an artist website, but I think it should be two separate websites. Like, your website should have a goal. If you're trying to get new students, your website should be primarily geared towards getting the person going to that website to contact you. So it should be really simple, easy to navigate, easy to contact you. So I have a button on every page of my website that says contact me on it. Like, really, I find it works well, so that people don't have to dig to find information. Lots of pictures and video. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable about putting their own students' pictures and videos on there, and I understand that. There's lots of stock photos and stuff, and I think those are fine, because mostly what you want a parent to go to your website and see pictures of kids having a nice time, and then see their kid in that space. So even if the picture is not of your student, I think pictures and videos are a good thing. And it should work well on a phone. Like, chances are, your future student's parent is like sitting in their car waiting for their kid to get out of karate and going on their phone. So, yeah, so just make sure that it's optimized for mobile too. And then on the frowny face side, teacher centered, we went over this, should be more about them than you. Lengthy paragraphs. I think a lot of what I'm going to say is centered towards me, but I will never read a lengthy paragraph. And I think a lot of people, when they're like first researching things, won't either. So, like, if you have certain things that you want people to know, the less you say, the more those things will stand out. So multiple clicks to reach contact page. It should be very easy to contact you. People shouldn't have to like search for your phone number or email. And then this one's a little controversial and people will disagree, and that's okay, but ambiguous about pricing and offerings. I put my prices on my website because I, as a consumer, will never call somebody and ask what they charge, because it's awkward and I don't like it. And so I think being upfront is good, and I think if you don't put what you charge on your website, then you're making a lot of people just not contact you at all. Yeah, so, and then the next thing, where to teach. I've only ever taught out of apartments and students' homes. But it doesn't have to be fancy. If this picture right here is of my first apartment when I moved back to Seattle, and you can see that green arrow is pointing to my bed, which is next to the fridge. And then like that's my student right there. So that was my studio apartment that I had a roommate in and taught from, and my roommate was really nice and left every time I taught, which was really sweet of her. It worked. I mean, it wasn't like ideal, but I think what I'm saying there is just don't, like if you don't have a space that's ideal, it's fine. People are there for you. They're not there for the space. I mean, it should be like clean and stuff. You don't teach how to look at them, but easy parking. Oh, the things that do matter are easy parking in your potential clients. Because when I graduated college, I lived on Capitol Hill, which wasn't great because I think people like to be able to just park and then send their kids up to you, and you couldn't do that where I lived. And then there's not that many families on at least the part of Capitol Hill I lived on. So I think if you're moving somewhere or thinking about where you want to teach, putting yourself in a neighborhood with a lot of children is a good idea. If you travel to students, it has to be worth it. If I traveled to students again, I would charge the same rate for my travel time as I do my teaching time, because it's kind of sucks. And it's a big luxury to have a piano teacher come to your house. So I feel like the pricing should be that of luxury things. Yeah, I used to teach in this neighborhood in W before Shores. It was fancy. And I had like 13 or 14 students, and I'd go on Wednesdays, and I'd have two students like from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and then I would have students again starting at like 12:30 in the afternoon up until 9 o'clock at night. And then we put 5 minutes between the lessons, because all the houses are so close to each other. But also one of those days I did hit a car on my way from one house to the other house, which, and man, and the guy was just like in his lawn. Like, he was just like working on his plants and I just hit his car. I laugh about it now, but it was so not my best day ever. Yeah, so really make it worth it for yourself if you're traveling to your students. And then the other thing is, if you're teaching for somebody else at their studio, you have to make sure it's worth it for you. I did not find it sustainable. Nobody I ever worked for was able to pay me enough to make a living. And almost everybody I ever worked for hired me as an independent contractor, which means that you're paying the same taxes that you would be if you were working for yourself anyways. So it's just not, I haven't found it sustainable. There are exceptions to that, but nobody I ever worked for was able to fill my schedule enough. There was lots of unpaid travel time and hours, and yeah. And then if you do have to work for somebody else, which is like lots of people do, I did, don't feel bad quitting when you can, because I had a couple of the places I worked for like really killed me when I like quit, because I moved back here like June of 2016, and I was able to be on my own I was able to quit those studios in November, I think, and they were like upset, and I get it, sort of, but also, if a business isn't able to pay you enough to make a living, they're the ones who have the problem, not you. So you shouldn't feel bad. They should feel bad for not paying you to live. Yeah. Okay, payment. I feel like this is another, I have really strong opinions about payment, and that it should all be automated, and that, automated meaning, not even, Zelle or, Venmo. You shouldn't have to click a button to pay, to be paid. It should just automatically happen. Yeah, so I'll go over more of that later, but in a rate that allows you to live your best life. We live in Seattle. It's expensive here. And if you charge enough to live well, then if somebody's having a hard time, you can discount lessons for them. I think that makes more sense than charging a lower rate to be more accessible to more people. Because if somebody is really struggling with money, they're not going to be able to afford, say, $50 an hour. Well, even though that in our market is very inexpensive. So it's better to charge a lot more than that and be able to discount for those people that need it, or join Musical.ly. And also, having a high rate, I had a lot of raises over the years because I started very low, and nobody was ever mad at me for raising my rate. The worst thing that ever happened when I raised my rate, and I raised it that first year I raised it something like 50%, because I was not smart when I said it in the first place. I had one family email back and say that they had to think about it because they just have to see how it would fit into the budget. And then they kept going anyways, so, yeah. And your students want you to not struggle. Parents want influences for their kids that are happy and thriving and not struggling. So, by charging enough, you're kind of doing everybody a favor. And that you'll be happier and more, probably a better teacher too. Flat rate tuition. This taught me a lot. So flat rate tuition is when you take the total amount of lessons in the year and then divide it by the amount of months. So I teach 34 lessons between September and June, and I divide that number by 10, and then multiply that number by the cost of one lesson. So they pay the same thing every month, even if that month has less lessons in the month. This helped me a lot. I was much happier around Christmas time, being able to see my family and have fun and not be poor. So I highly recommend it. I haven't really solved the summer issue. Right now I do packages of lessons, so people buy packages of 4, 5, 6, 7 lessons, which sort of works, and I just budget the other months to cover the summer because that's just how I do things, but I'm sure there's somebody doing better than me out there. And then rarely or never talking about money with clients. I think automated payments have a lot to do with me not having to talk about money. There are people who I've never talked about money with, and they pay me every month. It's great. So when somebody contacts me, it's like the money like magically appears. It's so nice. When a student contacts me from my website, so they see the rate on my website, and then they contact me, and then they come in for a meet and greet, and then I hand them a piece of paper with my policies and my rate and blah blah blah, and how to pay me stuff. And then I play the piano with their kid, and we have a great time. And then after that, I ask them if they have any questions. They say no generally, or they say yes, and I answer any questions. And then they say, yay, we want lessons. And then I'll say, yay, I'll send you the link to sign up for my payment processor. And then I send them the link, and then they sign up and put their credit card in, and then they just pay me every month. And I've never said I charge X dollars. And it's great. And then if their credit card ever like expires or whatever, the site I use, which is Spawns, which is Eric Branner's baby, they email the student saying like, update your credit card. And sometimes the student doesn't remember to do that and you have to be like, hey, did your credit card expire? And they're like, oh no, I'm so sorry. And then everything's fine. But yeah, that's the only time I ever talk about money is if somebody's card expires and I have to tell them to put a new one in. But usually Bonds takes care of that. Okay, and then the last thing is that it should be easy for you to know. If Netflix asked me every month if I wanted to pay them money, I would say no some months. Like, so I think by having a parent write you a check every month, they're having to say every month, yes, I want piano lessons. Even if that month their kid is like, has like soccer and baseball on top of each other with the side of like the nutcracker or whatever. So by having automated payments, it's easy for them, and they don't have to reconsider every month whether they want to keep going with lessons. So I think it's also like a decent retention policy or retention strategy because, like, if somebody's thinking about the money they're paying you every month, then they have to think about it versus it just happens. On the sad face, cash and check. I mean, and Venmo and any other way of being paid that is not just like the money magically appearing in your bank account. I think I've talked enough about that. And then under that, which is related, is struggling. I hate struggling, and I'm a worse teacher when I'm struggling. And like awkward conversations and chasing payment, those go together. Like reminding students to pay me. Man, that's so awkward. I really hate it a lot, and I never do it anymore. And I think it's made my relationship with my students better. Because if I have a parent that hadn't paid me in a few weeks, like, and they just kept forgetting or they weren't there, blah, 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 I would start to feel like resentful towards that student, which is like a really bad way to feel towards like a 5-year-old bumpkin. Like how mean of me. Cute little kid, yeah, so, and then even if parents knew that they were wrong when I used to have to chase payments, they would be mad at me. Like they would like answer my please pay me email snarkily. Like they would be like, I will pay you. It was so annoying. And gosh, my life has gotten so much better since I'm just like, the money is not a part of like any of my teaching at all. And then any system that's complicated for you or clients, so yeah, that's kind of covered in the rest. So to summary, I would highly recommend anybody getting into automated payments, and I think it's really impacted my teaching in a surprising way. Okay, policies. Short and simple. If your policy, okay, I'm putting a lot of my own opinions into this, and if what's working for you is working, then that's great. But in my opinion, if your policy is longer than one well-spaced 12-point page, single-sided page, then it's too long and people aren't going to read what's really important there. So things that your policy should cover is how much to pay you, how to pay you, missed lessons, what to do about that, and how to quit. And maybe a couple words about practicing. But I find that like lots of policies go into, on the sad side, every single detail of every bad thing that could possibly go wrong in a lesson. So like, for example, some policies I've seen has don't bring food into the studio. But would you rather them read that, or would you rather them read pay me? So, and it's easy enough to be like, hey, don't eat that, you know, to the individual student who feels like they need to like eat Cheetos while during the lesson. Another one is like, take off your shoes when you come in. I've seen that in some policies. But you could just tell the students to take their shoes off. It's fine and easy. And then if you want to have, and then the other thing I see sometimes in policies is like talking about like a manual on how to practice and piano tuning and stuff. I think that is all valuable stuff. I think it's just a completely different document. Like that's not a contractual document. That's really good information to have. But you don't need to have them sign that they're going to get their piano tuned every year. I don't think. Okay, and then a sustainable missed lesson policy. It should be sustainable. I mean sustainable for you. Like I don't mean sustainable for whoever your student is, because your student family has agency and can choose somebody with a policy that works for them. All of that was to say, if you don't want to give makeup lessons, you definitely do not have to. Yeah. Building in vacations, and if you do want to do makeup lessons and you feel good about it, you can. Building in vacations is really good. I love vacations. I teach 34 weeks out of the 10-month school year. I think that means like I take like 9 weeks off, and then I teach like 6 or 7 weeks out of the summer. Everyone loves vacations. Everyone loves like coming back from vacations, and then they're just, I don't know. I feel so happy to see my students after I'm off for a couple weeks. So, yeah, absence makes the heart grow fonder or something. And nobody's ever complained about the amount of time I take off, because everyone loves the gift of time. And it should be easy for you and them. If it's like you can have 3 makeup lessons every semester if you're sick, and you let me know 13 and a half hours in advance, then like, it's too complicated. That's not easy. And they're gonna have to keep track of that, and you're gonna keep track of that. So, I think whatever policy you have, it should be pretty like this or that. Like, if it's anywhere in between, you're gonna find yourself having to like explain things to people, and like argue about if it's been 3 lessons, or whether the student was actually sick or at a birthday party. And which can also like build resentment, which you don't want toward your students because it makes you a bad teacher, or maybe a bad teacher. Okay, and then being overly accommodating, I think can like breed resentment. If you are like, well, I don't want to give makeup lessons, but they really want it, and it's not their fault that they had soccer 17 times this week, and 17 birthday parties, and like 4 doctor's appointments. And like, sure, I'll give up my time at 9:30 p.m. on Saturday, and because that's the only time that works for them. Like, that sucks, and you're gonna resent that after a while. Yeah, I think that all covers it. Communication. So like, whenever you're communicating with students or anybody, being concise is good. Hot take, I don't think an email needs to be longer than 5 sentences, almost ever. And then, because the longer it is, the less people are going. If you want people to get, the recital is this day at this time, you don't need to also put, and this is how you prepare for the recital. You don't need to, it doesn't need to, there shouldn't be any scrolling. And if your student is nervous about the recital, then, like there's a lot of things that you can put in that you don't have to. And if you do, then they might forget that the recital is on October 18th. Today's October 18th. And no recital today for me. Say respecting your time and policies, so don't break your own rules. Like just, yeah, I find myself like being like mad, not even mad, but like annoyed at students for like asking me for things that that are like against my policy or whatever. But like it's easy enough to just say no. I don't have to say yes. Save common responses. Like if you have like an email that you sent somebody who's contacting you for lessons, you can just save that email and then use it again later. Same thing for recital emails. I want to make a lesson that you don't offer that email. Yeah, any common email that you have. And then, this was like key for me, positive assumptions and empathy. So I just assume all my students love me. And that in all interactions, they just like adore me. And like, so anything that they say that I could read as snarky, I'm like, oh, they didn't mean it like that. Let me just answer like they love me. And then I do, and then even if it could have been considered snarky at the beginning, they answer back like really nicely because they're just like, oh yeah, I love you. Yeah, so I try to, if a family asks for something I don't offer, then I just assume they don't know, and so I just tell them nicely, and yeah. And then if something like gets your like blood pressure up, then you don't have to respond right away. This goes for like in person too. So if somebody like asks you something in person and you're like, ah, then you can just say like, I'll email you about that later. Let me think about it. Yeah, that's one I should use more often. So, and then, unprompted explanations are bad. Like, so say a teacher doesn't offer makeup lessons. So if somebody emails that teacher and is like, hey, Sally has a dentist appointment, can I have a makeup lesson? Then, and a teacher might email back, hey, I actually don't offer that because blah, 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 and here's this link to this webpage about why teachers shouldn't do makeup lessons, and I hope you really understand, and I hope this isn't too much trouble, and sorry. That's like, you don't need to explain. You can just be like, oh, well, what would I say? If somebody asked me that, I would just say, oh, I'm not able to accommodate like makeup lessons. I hope the dentist appointment goes well. And then, if they come back and ask me more, I will say, sorry, I'm not able to accommodate that, but because I am a one-teacher studio, but here's a link to a couple of studios that might be able to accommodate that. And then generally they come back with, I'm so sorry. Or they, yeah, so it's okay. And me as a teacher who does not, sorry, never mind, yeah. Okay, acceptance that is resentment. Yeah, so if you make an exception, which you will, or I will, I frequently break my own rules. Because it's the week of the recital and this person needs a lesson. Then try to think to yourself, will I be resentful if this happens again? And if the answer is yes, then try not to do it. But it's also like, sometimes exceptions happen and that's fine. And then defensiveness. So any explanation will come across defensive, I'm convinced. Like, if somebody like questions a policy or something and you like go immediately into explaining that policy, it just looks defensive. Like, and you don't need to be defensive, everyone loves you. So, yeah. Okay, coming towards the end here. Teaching. Everybody having a good time should be a top priority. When I first started teaching, I went into every lesson like determined to cram as much knowledge into those students' brains as humanly possible. Because I just wanted everyone to get their money's worth, even if they were paying me $20 an hour. But now, like relationships are long. Often you'll have a student from kindergarten to high school. And so there's going to be weeks that they come in and they've had a bad soccer game and they feel sad. And it's okay to talk about their soccer game for 5 minutes, and then do some improvisation, and then ask them to play something that they practice, and then they say that they haven't practiced and that they feel bad about it, and then you're like, okay, well, take another week and let's just play a game. You know, that's gonna happen sometimes, and I think if they leave happier than they came, it is a win. Shame is a horrible motivator. I'm really, really careful with any critique I get now because I know even the littlest thing can affect people, even if I don't think that it's something that should. So, I, especially around practicing, like I find a lot of students come in, and even though I don't try to cultivate this, but students will come in and they'll say, oh, I had such a busy week and I'm so sorry and I didn't practice, and I'm like, oh, just chill, it's fine. Like, that happens. Let's have a nice time. So, and I know personally, when I go to practice now, the first thought I have is how I should practice more. It's not like how much fun I'm going to be having playing the piano. And like, it's not about how much I love it. It's about how I should be better and about how, why didn't I work harder? And I really, really don't want to instill that in my students. Time spent during lessons getting to know your students is time well spent. Yeah, I used to go in and I used to be like business, like from the first second, but now every lesson I take like 2-3 minutes talking about the week. It's good. If they feel like you want to know them, and you should want to know them because you're going to have a very long relationship with them probably, then they'll be more invested too. And then incorporating improvisation and composition as early as possible. Forced Canadian pattern playbooks are great for that. But also anytime you teach a scale, you can just like teach a scale and then play along with the corresponding chord progression and let them improvise on it. And then, yeah. And you can incorporate that from the first lesson. That's actually what I do on my like meet and greet. I teach them a tiny song called Charlie Chipmunk, and I improvise with them, and that's it. So, yeah, and they love it. Mostly. Some of them are shy. Find music that's satisfying and fun to play from the first lesson. It kind of sucks, like, when you're like so stoked to start the piano, and then your teacher just like whips out C, 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 you know, or like the on the black keys, you know, like, and that's all you're doing, and you know that's necessary and fun. But there's also lots of music that you can play pretty much from the first lesson that is like better and more satisfying in conjunction with the like stuff you kind of have to just do. So some that come to mind are there's a lot of piano soprano pieces that are good for that, and then Little Gems for the Piano. They have multiple books that are really good for that, and that can be taught by rote. And yeah, and then Juan Cabezas Diversions, really good for transposing too. And then a lot of the stuff on Wendy Stevens' Compose Create website are good for that. Okay, and then other stuff. That's my other cat weasel. My cats have really contributed to my studio culture. Like, my students love my cats. Like, if you're thinking about it, I was nervous about getting cats, but it turned out great. So, if you're nervous about getting a cat, get a cat. Okay, yeah. Most things should be easy. So payment, policies, even for lessons, like if you're feeling like you have to work so hard and then you're putting all of your energy into teaching a student, you're probably doing too much. Like your student's probably feeling really stressed and really overwhelmed too, if that's what you're feeling during lessons. So yeah, I try to keep it at 60% of my energy most of the time during a lesson, because I think that's all that's really needed. And if I find myself going over that, then I can just feel the anxiety in the room go up. So, building relationships with other teachers in your community will enrich your life, make things more fun, and make you a better teacher. You are all here, so you know that. And yeah, this is the best place to be. That's where I live. This is where I live at. So, going to students' dance recitals, talent shows, orchestra concerts, sports games, whatever, is good. And it's really good advertising. If you were trying to get new students, going to your current student's talent show, really good marketing. Because then, like, if their parent is there, and you're there with their parent, and the student plays and it's good, and like, the parent's like, wow, this is so great, you're such a great teacher, and then the other parent nearby is like, whoa, you teach piano? So, it's really good marketing. And I think the students that I've been able to go to stuff for, like, they've been really grateful, and like, maybe not grateful, but like, happy to see me, and like, I cared. And it's really improved that relationship. And it's cool if piano isn't really their like, #1 thing, to go to the thing that is, because it's like, wow. Like, it's really cool to see them doing things that they're like, naturally good at. You know, totally no need to reinvent the wheel. If there's a resource that you are searching for any sort of teaching thing, it probably exists. So search for it before you make it. I made a lot of resources where I didn't need to because there were better ones available that other people did. And paying 99 cents would have been worth it. It's good to be in the position of learning something new. I think I took dance lessons all of last year and some of this year. Salsa dancing, and I still go dancing sometimes, and it's really fun. And I'm also really not good at it. Like, and it's really good to be in the position of doing something that doesn't naturally to you. It really gave me a lot of empathy for my students and a lot of respect because it takes a lot to like come back week after week to something like that. So, yeah, and it takes a long time to get good at piano. Piano's really hard, as is any other instrument. So. Okay, any questions?
Yes, please ask me all the questions you have from the great resource.
I got a question.
Yes.
How often do you change your rate of tuition?
It varies. For the last few years, it's kind of been every year, because that's kind of been the way the economy's been working, is that everything is going up every year, but historically it's been sort of every other year. Yeah, I'd say at least every other year is what I do in the future.
And the other thing is just a comment. I love your reminder that we can take a breath and not reply right
Yeah. Like sometimes it feels like it's unprofessional to like wait a day, but it's really fine. So, and waiting a day can like give you a chance to like poke your SMTA friend and be like, how do you answer this? Yeah. So, yeah.
Where are you going on vacation next?
Well, I'm going to California for Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to, I think I'm going to go to I do a thing for MTNA, so I'm going to go to the Collegiate Symposium in Oklahoma. Those are not exciting places. I'm trying to go to Hawaii in February, and Japan in May, though.
Yes.
So, but I haven't bought tickets, but I have plans. So, yeah.
When you decide your vacation, how far in advance do you announce them? And do you try to pick your vacations when you think your students are also going to be on vacation?
I do. I try to pick my vacations when my students are going on vacations, or I connect it. So I went to Egypt a couple years ago, and I took the Thanksgiving break plus another week to do that. So the way that my vacations work this year, and I do, every once in a while I'll change it in the middle of the year, but I'll, like if I have an unexpected thing happen, but I'll usually, so I take the first week of September, which I highly recommend, Labor Day week, because the kids are all getting back to school. They're all like, they're all like a mess. So it's a good week to take out. So Labor Day week, Thanksgiving week, 2 or 3 weeks of Christmas, usually 3, unless I have another week that I'm taking off instead. And then, yeah, I try to take the first week that they go back to school in January off too. So it's like 2 or 3 weeks generally. And then February break, I take a week off for the March MTNA conference. And then this week I'm taking Memorial Day week off, probably good. Yeah. And then I take the last 2 and a half weeks of June off. I take their last week of school off, basically the public school's last week off. And then if I have to change something in the middle, I'll work later in June. So, yeah, it works well. And people are to not have lessons that first week of school in September and January and the last week of school in June, even though it doesn't correlate with holiday or anything.
Shannon at home. Shannon, you want to shout it out?
Yeah, this is a not as fun question as your vacations, but I'm curious. So you mentioned a billing system that you use. Did you say Fawn, Faun, or
Oh, FONS. Fonts. It's good.
Fon? Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, they're like a billing and scheduling system.
Yeah, there's another one called My Music Stack.
Yeah, that's what I use, but there's follow-up with me having to be the bill collector. So
That was my issue with my music stuff. With
but
Fonts,
this one you don't have to be the collector, huh?
no, not at all.
Oh,
Um,
look into
and
this.
Eric Granner, one of the founders, is one of our members, so I'm sure he'd be. And they have a Facebook group too that's really good. It's called Fawn's Family, and it's a really good place even if you don't join right away to like kind of get to know what it is. And I think for MTNA members, they have some sort of special, like they get like a month or two for free. So I think if there's an MTNA code that would get you longer than usual free trial.
Cool. That sounds awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Stephanie?
Does it allow for ACH withdrawal or is it credit card?
It does allow for ACH withdrawal. The only thing about ACH is that it just takes longer. But honestly, if I was like, I just build the 3% or so fee into my fees. But if I was wanting to lower that, I would make everybody sign up for ACH, even though that's more work initially for people, but you'd still get the same, like it would still automatically come out of their account, which is what's really important to me. I didn't want to sweat that, so I just let people sign up however they want, but I have a couple people who just did the ACH, and a smaller percentage is taken out, but their payment takes like a week or two to actually go into my bank account. But it's a good option if you're concerned with the fees, because it's not nothing. I mean, every time I do my taxes, they're tax deductible, the fees, which is good. But then when I go to do my taxes and look at what the fees were, I'm like, oh, that was like $4,500. But I think it's worth it to me. I haven't not been paid for a lesson in the last like 5 years that I've been doing it. And yeah, so cool.
I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in finding out more about people here that have liability insurance, whether they have it or not, and whether they have general liability or professional liability, and or if they have gone the LLC route.
Yeah.
This is a really something I'm kind of looking at right now, and I just don't really know what people are doing.
There's a lot of good MTNA resources on liability. I think Josie also recently got liability insurance, right?
I did,
Yeah, so she'd be a good person to talk to. MTNA provides some. Oh, sorry.
I mean, you can talk to me because I got it, but I'm not sure. I don't know if it's like your part.
I really think like all of this is just like, you know, we talk to each other because it's what works for us, but like I don't think I have any actual wisdom.
The MTNA website is actually amazing. If you haven't spent a few hours looking through all their resources, oh my gosh, you should. Yeah, okay, great.
And they have some MTNA insurance stuff too.
And I can tell you that if you have a house, you have house insurance, a lot of, you can check with your house policy because it will cover probably most of your liability issues.
This is why I brought this up, because we just recently bought a house. They will drop you if there's any, house insurance will not cover any liability for business.
Oh, wow.
And the insurance records got really tight and really sketchy.
So that's new.
This is new, they'll drop you.
Okay.
And then you won't be able to get insurance.
Okay.
Or you will, but it will be very, very expensive.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm considering actually buying a liability policy separate because of this change in the housing.
Who's your insurance company? I'm curious.
I had to go with Cincinnati Insurance because I had accidentally, or not accidentally, I didn't know this was an issue, and so I ticked a box that says I own an in-home business, and then they asked what it was piano teaching, and they did all the major carriers denied me. So it's a
Yeah, there was one singular company that would cover even my condo insurance because I'm a PL teacher.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah, it's a good thing to think about. I guess I just kind of live life on the edge.
Shannon at home added in the chat that the Hartford does a fairly affordable small business policy, I guess.
Harvard.
The Hartford, yeah, HART.
Yeah. Cool. And that's, I mean, that's kind of how I learned like everything that I learned over the years. It's just like talking amongst everybody here. So yeah, it's great. Any other questions? Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us at home. That was great. What? We'll be online next month, and then we will be in person again in April. But we have a few online ones in between here and there. So November, January, and February. What was that?
So convenient.
Yeah, of course. And normally it will actually be on the SMTA Zoom. We just had a little email access code being sent to sort of snafu in the morning. So anyway, well,
Fine. And so we know what to do.
Hey, Ryan,
yes,
it's
sir.
Lee. Sorry, I was just trying to put a thank you in the chat, but it isn't sending. So I wanted to say thank you.
Of course. I'm glad you were able to join.
Yeah, I kind of forgot all about it today, so this is good. I'm glad I could participate.
Yeah, of course. Well, and
Oh,
it was a funny scramble of like, okay, does anybody know anyone that's for sure going to join? Because we need to email them to let them know or text them or whatever.
yeah. Well, Kathy sent me a text, which was great. I also I said, thanks, Ryan, send to Ryan. It says Ryan is not in this meeting,
Oh, that's fun.
which doesn't matter at all.
That's very weird.
But I hope I'll see you next time. I'll try not to forget it.
Yeah, of course. I'll see you
All right.
then.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later, Sandra.
I